lesson, we looked at how to use pivot table um, in Google Sheets. But with today, we'll be looking at how to use pivot table Excel. It in Excel. So, for example, you can either use the suggestion or create your own pivot table yourself. For example, we click on, let's say, this table. Then when you click on this table, you click on insert. In your insert, you will see pivot table. That's the one you can create on your own. You can see recommended pivot table. If you click on this recommended pivot table, you see it shows you the recommended what you can use for your pivot table. Looking at this, you can see row labels and some of quantity sold. You can see row labels and count of latte sales. You can see row labels and sum of latte sales. So you can decide to use this. But if you notice there's a drill down application here in this. If we use this and click OK, it creates this preferred table for us. Then we can try to drill down on this. You see, looking at Americano, we can see that we made sales on 4th 2023 and we made another sales on 10th 2023. Now that's the drill and the drill shows us the date. It added the date to the row label. You can decide to rename this your row label by double clicking on it, and let's say items. You can also do the same thing here. You can also do the same thing here by, like, let's say sum of lattice. Instead of sum of lattice, let's just say lattice sales and click OK. Okay, same pivot tables already exist. So let's give it another name. Let's say latte sale. So now you see we've renamed our column, which are items and latte sale. So for Americano we sold 152. For cappuccino we sold 183. For croissant we sold 205. For espresso we sold 163. For latte we sold 172, and for muffin we sold 195. Looking at this, you see that there is an error somewhere on this table. So this can't just be latte sales. This has to be all the items. So you can rename it as item sales and click OK. Now that we have our item sales, you see that our cappuccino, we have, when we drill down, you see we sold on the 3rd 2023 and we sold on the 9th 2023. And that's how to use the recommended pivot table. And looking at the pivot table field, you can see we used item, sales date, and latest sales. So you see that it used all the item, not just latest sales. You can decide, oh, we don't want to check for item, we want only latest sales. You can see now. Now looking at this, we realize that our item sales, we can now rename it to latte sales instead of item sales. So when we remove this, we can say we want to check for item and quantity sold and remove the sales date. So you can see our Americano we sold 210, for cappuccino we sold 370, for croissants we sold 150, for espresso we sold 310, for latte we sold 450, and for muffin we sold 190. So that's for your recommendation. You see, you can drag and drop here. But if you want to this, if you decide, oh, I don't want to use the recommended, I don't want to use the recommended pivot table. You can decide on your own to pick which. So you can decide, oh, I want to add my own pivot table. Just go to the insert pivot table. Then it asks you, Excel asks you that do you want it in new sheet or do you want to use it in this existing sheet? So I'll click on new sheet and to create a new sheet for you. So to tell you to drop and drag what things you want to create in the pivot table. So our item will go on the row while our quantity so we go to the variable. So you can see we have our row labels, which is cappuccino, etc., etc. And we have the sum of the quantity. We can decide, oh, I don't want the sum of the quantity. There's a drop down here you can click on, and you go to more field settings. Then you can say, oh, I want the average, I want the max, I want the mean, I want the count, etc., etc. There's the var, everything you want. You can decide to change it. It does not, it's not condensed to just put in the sum quantity. You can use the count, you can use the average, you can use the max, you can use the mean. Let's say we want to see the average, then click on OK. So this is our averages. Now we can even insert a chart. Let's look at recommended chart. So it's telling us to use a column chart for the chart. That's the recommended. We can decide, oh, I don't want a column chart, I want a pie chart. So this is a pie chart. I can say, oh, I don't want a pie chart, I want a 3D chart. So etc., etc. Okay, let's say we want to use a pie chart. Click on OK, and we have our chart here. So you can decide, I want data labels for my chart. So it shows you the label on how they are sold. And decide, oh, I don't want this legend. I just want it like this, but this does not make sense because we don't know what's happening here. So you need your legend. I can say, oh, I don't want the title. And this just shows you average quantity. So this is how to use a chart with it. Let's go back to our table. So this is how to add a chart to it. So you can also add charts on our main data. Let's say we want to check the sales data for sales date for latte and the sales for latte. So we want to check how the trends for latte. And remember, when you are using trends, we use line charts. Let's see what it recommends. You see, it's used line charts because it is trend. You need, as far as there's dates happening there, it is a line chart, and I recommend line charts. So let's say we had a chart. Looks Look at our chart now. So there's a trend, you see. There's a trend in our sales. So you can decide, oh, I want to add maybe an x-axis title. You can add data labels if you want. You can add error bars. You can add legend, but I don't think we need legend there. So you can do anything. You can decide, oh, I want to change the colors. Um, the style, I want to change the style and color. So you can change the style and color here. Let's say I like this. Let's say I want to change the color from blue maybe to green, maybe to green. Then I'll click on OK. So I can do anything here I want to do. I can change all the colors I want to change here. So this is how to use pivot table and create charts in in Excel.